Hello and welcome. I'm Fiona Marie Ellis, coach, mentor, author, and trainer. And for more than 10 years, I've been helping people to release, reset, and rebuild for an aligned future. Today, I was doing a little exercise for myself, one that I do quite regularly, and I thought, hey, why not share it with you? So, what I want to talk about is sometimes we can get into a moment of chaos and uncertainty. I'm recording this in March 2020, so COVID-19 is a little popular right now. There's a few things going on in our world that are making it a bit uncertain, and it's causing a lot of fear and worry. Now, worrying, as my cousin put it so beautifully one day, worrying is just wishing for what you don't want. So it's kind of useless, it's kind of overrated. There's loads of other videos if you want to delve into my Aligned Future collection and learn a bit more about the purpose of worrying. It does have a purpose. But what I wanted to do today is focus specifically on how to do things differently. What to do when the worry, when the chaos, when the uncertainty is getting a little bit out of control, and really how to reset yourself. Come back to a place you can influence, a place of being grounded, feeling certain again, really just understanding those 6 core human needs of from Tony Robbins. I'll pop a link down below if you don't know which ones I'm talking about, and really just bringing everything back into a stable place again. So I like to do it this way. It's just one of the activities that I use, but I really wanted to share it. Now I'm going to do it the big way. I'm just going to get my other pen. What happens when things get uncertain and when fear starts to get out, especially right now, because there's a real over push and over dramatization from some of the media because fear sells. So what we're wanting to do is look at how do we separate the things that we're worrying about from the things that we can actually do something about. So what we find is there are things that we're trying to control, and I trust that you can read that green, okay? No, maybe I'll use the purple. So there are things that we are trying to control. And I'm here to tell you most of those things in life, we probably can't. So I'm going to add the word can't control, okay? So right now, what I want you to do is just start to notice all of the things that you maybe are worried about, but you actually can't control. So things like you can't control, I'm going to use COVID for example, you can't control what other people do. You can't. We can put all the best measures in place, but we cannot control whether or not someone is going to break their own quarantine, going to cough on a handrail, not going to wash their hands with soap, okay? We actually can't control a lot of our own things, but what we can do is we can influence others and ourselves. Others, I mean our family as well. And there are some things that we can take more responsibility for than anything else. So we can't control what other people do, but we can influence our own hygiene, for example. We can wash our own hands religiously. You can wash up to the elbows and do the 20 seconds thing, which takes a really long time. We can use our own disinfectant sprays. We can take responsibility for our own, taking extra vitamin C, drinking water, avoiding places, things like that. So we want to look at, we can't control what other people are going to do. We cannot control. We do not know what the future is going to hold for this right now. So worrying about it, actually not helpful at all. Worrying is going to cause stress. Stress is going to drop your immune system. When your immune system drops, you are now more susceptible. So don't stress about things you can't control. There is nothing that you can do about it. It's either going to happen or it's not. So if it's not going to happen, then you just wasted a whole bunch of energy worrying about something that didn't end up happening. And if it does happen, our bodies really instantly move into dealing with it. So you actually don't ever need the worry time. It's completely irrelevant. You either not having to deal with it or you're dealing with it. You can anticipate, you can plan, and you can take responsibility, but don't worry about it. So some other areas of life. So one of the things that can be challenging, perhaps right now or just in general, is job uncertainty. So for some people, they run their own business. For some people, maybe you've got a job and you've been there for a long time, but these are uncertain times. The future is changing. You look at things like the industries are changing so fast. Technology is changing so fast. So perhaps you can't control your job certainty, right? You can't control whether they will continue to employ anybody, let alone you. You can't, unless you are the owner of the company, you can't control keeping the company open, for example. Unless you're the owner, in which case, different conversation. But you can't control that. That's not something that you can actively go up and control. But what you can control is your own standard of work ethic, for example. So if they are going to restrict staff, or in business, for example, if you do run your own business, you can't control whether or not the clients are going to show up and pay you. You can control that you always show up with a very high standard, with a great work ethic. You are constantly doing the work that needs to be done. Okay, so the other way to look at control or influence is there's a great book, and I've got an entire different recording on this, called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. If you haven't read it yet, highly recommend it. I'll pop a link down below. They talk about lead measures and lag measures. And the clearest way that I finally understood this one day is we can't control the number on the scale once we stand on the scale. So if you're trying to lose weight and you go stand on the scales and you see the number is, 82. Once you're standing on that scale, you can't control that number. Yelling at the scales does not change that number. That is a lag measure. That is something that has already happened. You actually cannot any further control that number once you are on the scales. I trust that makes sense. It's kind of obvious when you think about it, yelling at the scales. We've all done it, but it didn't make the number go down or up, whichever way you're trying to do. What we can do is influence everything we did before we stood on the scales. That's what we call a lead measure. It is something we can influence. We can leverage it. We can control what we eat. We can control how many times we go to the gym. We can control how much water we drink. We can control the weights and the reps and the techniques and the activities that we are doing. So we can influence the number that's on the scales by doing certain things that we can take responsibility for. Okay, so that's really what I want you to do here and here. So perhaps you can't control someone's bad attitude, right? You can't make anybody change their attitude towards you by, have you ever tried telling someone change their attitude towards you? Generally the worst way to try and do it. You can't force anybody to change. What you can do is focus on how you treat or avoid them. There will be certain situations where if you are in a toxic situation, if you are constantly meeting someone with a bad attitude, who treats you poorly, who does some terrible actions towards you, bullying, whatever it is, there are situations you should leave. That you shouldn't be there anymore. You can't control their behavior necessarily, but you can leave. Or there are some situations where you cannot leave for whatever reason. It's a family member or it's a workplace or something like that. What you can control is how you, or influence, is how you show up to them. What are you doing? What boundaries are you presenting? What strength are you bringing to the conversation, or compassion are you bringing? What kindness are you bringing? How is it that this person is perhaps a reflection of your internal standards, boundaries, compassion, and reflection of what's going on for you internally? So this is an external. We cannot control the external. We can control or influence internal and personal responsibility. That's responsibility. So I trust this is making sense. So what you do is you simply go through whatever it is that you're worrying about. Write a huge list of what you're worrying about and separate it into these two things. If you're worrying about something, put it on the can't control list and then think, okay, I can't control the job certainty. I can start keeping an eye out for other potential work that's going on. Or I can't control other people carrying the virus and not washing their hands and wiping all over the handrails. I can control not holding onto handrails, washing my hands, protecting my family. So really think through, there's so many different times when this will be relevant. And as I say, I'm doing this right now, but I do this a lot in my own life, in my own business. There are things in business you can't control. There are things you can definitely influence. You can't necessarily control getting clients. You can influence showing up, networking, marketing, doing the work, putting the message out there. So what is it? Go through and separate these two things out. Then what you want to do with this list is just ignore it. It's going to happen or it's not going to happen. Once it happens, you can potentially make a recovery plan, a crisis management plan, a risk mitigation plan. So these are the kinds of things that might happen. You can maybe make a bit of a plan of if it happens, then I do this. But really most of the time your energy is better spent here. Your energy is much better spent doing the things you can control. So this is useful to get it out of your head. It is useful to know it is a possibility, and it is useful to know that it's been ruminating around your brain. When they've studied the brain and how it works, Learned Optimism, another great book, I'll link it below. It talks about our brains will keep recurring on a problem so we don't forget. It's the job of the brain to remind us of potential danger. That's all this is. Once you get it all out of your head on paper and you say, okay, brain, this list is right here. Anytime we want to access it, we can. Your brain lets it go and you can focus far more clearly on this, on the things you can do, you can control, and you can influence, right? This is the bit where you must learn to focus your energy. It can be challenging. It can be challenging in the times we've got going on. It can be challenging when all of the media is coming in. What you can't control is what the media says. What you can do is turn it off. Not this media. Really choose what you're paying attention to. I don't watch the news. I read up on my specific sites with the specific information. The rest of the time I'm dedicating to Gaia, I'm dedicating to YouTube mentors, learning new education, online programs, upskilling. If we're housebound, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm connecting with family, I'm gardening, I'm actually spending time in nature and at the beach and in fresh air. So you just, whatever your version of this and whatever time you're watching this video, do the same. Take the time, write the list, write down what you can't control, get it out of your brain. Look at what you can influence and do that. Okay? Trust this has been useful. Please let me know. I'd love your thoughts. I'd love what you've realized you can't or can control and influence. And until we speak again, take care of you, take care of others, and take care of the greater good. Bye for now.